in many textbooks. Here you see a sort of a philosopher, and he said everything in the universe is information. So that's his definition of information. Or let me come to another definition. You see here systems with a code. That's the definition of Shannon. Shannon is not interested in the meaning of the code. His question is only, are there letters or numbers? There can be random numbers or whatever. Everything like this is information in his definition. Now let me come to my definition of information. So we see here is a complete universe. You see systems without code, for example stars and snowflakes and crystals. You see random characters which are also outside of the definition domain. And you see here proteins and cars and so on. We say that is specified complexity, but it's not information. The field, the red one, that's my definition of information. It is always possible to find out if a system is within or outside of the definition domain. Now let's have a look to the different kinds of definition of information. One philosopher said everything is information. The advantage is done if he makes such a definition. The disadvantage is not for practical use. Shannon, he made a mathematical theory of information. The advantage is measuring of information by formulas. But the disadvantage is only valid on the level of statistics, not more. Dembski has defined the specified complexity. It is a very good idea. The advantage is to understand systems which are made by intelligence. The disadvantage from Dembski is no clear definition of the domain, no strong conclusions are possible. Therefore, I have another definition of information. Law of nature information theory advantages are allows to formulate laws of nature. First time that laws of nature are formulated for a non-material entity, and therefore strong conclusions are possible. The disadvantage is no mathematical formulation. Let's have a look to biological systems. Does the code found within DNA fit into the definition domain of information? That is a very important question. The decoded portion of the DNA contains words that are 3 letters long. Their 3 letters represent specific amino acids: adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. There are 4 letters in the genetic code. On this picture you see the 20 amino acids and the genetic code. One word has 3 genetic letters. It is a ternary code with 3 letters in a word. There are 4 different letters in the genetic alphabet. You see here the chemical formulas of the 4 letters, and once again the DNA molecule. In the DNA molecule we find the highest density of information. If I would have a pinhead of this material, the DNA molecule, my question is, how many books, as you see here in the bookstore, we can store in one pinhead? I have calculated this, and it's amazing how much books we can store in one pinhead. The distance from the Earth to the Moon, there are 384,000 kilometers. The pile of books we can store in one pinhead is 500 times higher. That is the highest density we know. Another example, I have a very small Bible. Yesterday I said my heaviest Bible is 11 kilogram. my smallest Bible is only a slide. And this slide contains the complete Bible. And I have compared the density of information of this slide with the density of information in the DNA molecule. And we see here on this picture, in the DNA molecule, the information is 7.7 million times more in density. So it is very high density in information. All the proteins we have in our body, there are 50,000 different proteins, and all the proteins contain amino acids. Here, for example, the human insulin has 51 amino acids in 2 chains. Now we are familiar with the laws of nature about information. We know the definition domain. We have learned to see if we are inside or outside of the definition domain. And now we can come to the conclusions. And you will see there are very strong conclusions which we can make from the laws of nature about information. Let me come once again to the definition domain. All 5 levels of information are found: statistics, syntax, semantics, pragmatics, and apobatics. And if we are inside of the definition domain, then we can make very strong conclusions. Let me come to the first conclusion. Since the DNA code of all life forms is clearly within the definition domain of information, we conclude there must be a sender. It is a very important conclusion. If somebody would say life is coming without a sender, we can say from a viewpoint of law of nature, it is a wrong idea. Total wrong. What is the conclusion we can make here? We can say atheism is a wrong idea. We can say it by using a law of nature. And law of nature has the highest level of science. We can say, if we have a look to the living systems, we find all the levels of information. Now we will get more information about the sender. What can we say about the sender from the viewpoint of laws of nature about information? The first conclusion we have found: there must be a sender. But we can say more about the sender. Since the density and complexity of the DNA encoded information is billions of times greater than man's present technology, we conclude the sender must be supremely intelligent. I had a lecture on a university in Germany, and I was speaking about the DNA molecule, about the density of information and so on. And also I was using the term sender, the sender of the information. And then a student asked me, I understand what you want to say. You will say there is a God necessary. Oh, I say, it's a very good conclusion. Very good conclusion, you have understand what I want to say. But she said now, but my question is another one. Can you tell me who gave the information to God? Oh, very good question. No, I said to her, no problem. There is an over-God, and the over-God has more information than God has. God needs only so much information to construct and to program the DNA molecule. And the over-God has more information and gave him the information to do this. But the next question is, who gave the information to the over-God? No, there must be an over-God. And the over-God gave the information to the over-God. And so it is okay. Yeah, but there's another question. who gave the information to the over God? No, there must be an over God. And you see what happened? How many gods do we need? An infinite number of gods. And each god has a little bit more information than the god before. That's what this conclusion can we make from the information we find in the living systems. What can we say about the last one in this long sequence? If we are speaking about the infinite number, we cannot speak in the term the last one, but I will do it now for understanding it better. The last one in this sequence must have all information about everything. He must know all the snowflakes on the Himalaya, all the sands on all beaches around the world. He must know what all cells in our body are doing at this moment. He must know everything about each atom in the sun, what is the pressure, what is the temperature, everything. And he must know everything about our life, everything. He has the total knowledge. But it is easier in the same way to say not an infinite number of gods. It is from the viewpoint of logic the same statement if we say there is only one God. But what is the conclusion for this one God? He must have all information. Infinite. He must have infinite information. So we can make the second conclusion about the sender. The sender is omniscient. He is infinite in intelligence and information. We can make another conclusion which is very important. Because he knows everything, we can say he knows everything at the moment. But he also must know everything in the past. But what about the future? He must know everything in future. If he would know, he didn't know everything in future, so he has not an infinite information. But we have made the conclusion he must have an infinite number of information and intelligence. Therefore, he must know everything in the past and in the future. What is the conclusion? This sender, this God, must be eternal. You see, we can make this conclusion from the laws of nature about information. The sender is omnipotent, we can also say, in the same way as I have made the conclusion in the way of information. Since the sender must have encoded the information into the DNA molecules, constructed the molecule biomachines required for the encoding, decoding and synthesizing processes, and designed all the features for the original life forms, we conclude the sender must be purposeful and supremely powerful. Where did the sender's information and creative power originate? There are two possibilities: a regression of senders extending back to a sender possessing infinite information, intelligence and power, or one eternal sender with infinite information, intelligence and power. So we know a little bit more about the sender. Number 3, the sender must be omnipotent, and the sender, number 4, must be eternal. Let me come to another conclusion, number 4. Since information is a non-material fundamental entity and cannot originate from material quantities, we conclude the sender must have a non-material component. The sender must be spirit. God is spirit. Now let's see our conclusions about the sender from the point of view of laws of nature about information. We see on the left side the 5 points we find out. There must be a sender. The sender must be omniscient, infinite in intelligence and information. The sender must be omnipotent, almighty. The sender must be eternal, and the sender must have at least a non-material component. Now, after finding to the conclusions by using laws of nature, we can have a look at the Bible and to see if our conclusions are right. And you see, to the 5 conclusions, you see here a few verses of the Bible which says the same. The fool says in the heart, there is no God. Now we can see that you know all things. That is for number 2. And number 3, I am the Alpha and the Omega, who is and who was and who is to come, the Almighty. Number 4, from everlasting to everlasting you are God. And number 5, we find it in John chapter 4, verse 24, God is Spirit. Now the next question is, who is the sender? Who is the creator? And we see we come now to a scientific boundary. We cannot say from the viewpoints of laws of nature about information who the person of the sender is. Now we need another source of information. And this other source of information is the Bible. And the Bible tells us in Genesis 1, 10 times was it, and God said. And in Psalm 33 we read, for he spoke, and it came to be, he commanded, and it stood firm. The sender, God, can do it in a very short time. And more about the person of sender we find in the New Testament. In the beginning of the Gospel of John we read, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. If you read further in chapter 1 of Gospel John, we see this person is Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is the Creator. It's not possible to come to these conclusions using the laws of nature. Therefore, we need the Bible. We need both the laws of nature about information and also the Bible. The Bible is a higher level of information. Let me come to the 5th conclusion. Since information is a non-material fundamental entity and cannot originate from material quantities, and since information also originates from man, we conclude man's nature must have a non-material component. The materialism is saying man is only matter. We can see the laws of nature about information says it is a wrong idea. Can we give an answer about the Big Bang? Of course, we can use also the laws of nature. Since information is non-material entity, we conclude that the assumption the universe is composed solely of mass and energy is false. That is the idea of the Big Bang. In the beginning there was only matter and energy. Energy and matter are material entities. And one law of nature says the matter cannot create a non-material entity. In our world we find many books with information. We find in our cells there is a lot of information. So we see in this moment there is a lot of information in many places in this world. So the information cannot come from matter and energy. So we can say this idea is wrong. I will say it is the shortest way to say the Big Bang is a wrong idea. We don't need all the aspects from astronomy or whatever. We can do it also, but in this way we can refute it in a very short way. Let me come to the seventh conclusion. Since biological information originates only from an intelligent sender, and all theories of chemical and biological evolution require that information must originate solely from mass and energy alone, it means no sender, we conclude all theories or concepts of chemical and biological evolution are false. All ideas. And if you will see tomorrow or a year later a new idea about evolution, we can say also this idea will be false. Evolution is an impossible process. We can say it from the highest level of science, from the viewpoint of laws of nature. Anyone who disagrees with these laws and conclusions must falsify them by demonstrating the initial origin of information from purely material sources. That is what must be done if somebody would say, I disagree with the conclusions. Therefore, the laws of nature about information have refuted the assumption of scientific materialism and theories of chemical and biological evolution, and established the existence of an eternal, omniscient, omnipotent being. All philosophies or theories based on the assumption of scientific materialism, including chemical and biological evolution, are falsified by the laws of nature about information. So we see the conclusions, the 7 conclusions, are very, very strong. They give us the possibility to show which ideas are wrong, which are published in science.